Hey, this is the Ads with the Twain podcast. I'm your host, Ben Blackman, and on this episode, we're going to talk about why most ad agencies stink and the number one question you should ask them before you ever hire one. Here comes episode 121. The Ads with the Twain podcast is dedicated to helping you create simple, successful ads and use smart strategies to grow your online business. Get ready because I think you're going to love this. Hey, so I just want to say that this is not an episode that's intended to just bash agencies, or actually maybe it is. Either way, um, agencies do stink for the most part, and there's a lot of reasons for that. And I just kind of want to go over that with you, so it gives you something to think about if you're thinking about hiring an individual or a boutique style agency like mine, or if you're just looking at a bigger agency or something along those lines. I just want you to give you some stuff to think about because, I know it's hard. It's hard to figure out where you should go and what you should do. So let me just tell you my story a little bit and how I got started because it might be helpful. So a long time ago, I had a company and not a ad agency. And this is right when Google Ads was first coming out, very first started. And so I decided, hey, let's run some Google ads. And actually, I ended up hiring somebody who knew how to do Google ads, and I paid them like $1,500, which is like $2,500 now, right, to set up some ads for me. And they weren't even going to manage; they were just setting them up and then handing them off to me. And so when I took a look at it, like I'm a pretty decent copywriter. I was much better then than I am now. I can tell you that, but because I was doing it a lot more, but. And so I already kind of had that part down, but I didn't really know how to input the ads. Definitely didn't know anything about tracking. And of course, tracking was really new then. It was not nearly as sophisticated as it is today, of course. But I looked at how this guy set up the ads, and I was like, oh, I can do that. Because I was kind of techie and kind of liked that stuff anyway. And then next thing you know, I started doing that. And so some businesses around town found out I was doing it, and a couple of them asked me if I could do ads for them. And next thing you know, I'm doing ads for people. And so the thing is back then, when you first started doing Google ads, everything worked. Didn't matter what you put out there, it was working because it was new, right? So, the cool thing is that not a huge amount of players came into the market immediately. It took a little time, but then a bunch of people started coming in. Well, with the advent of Facebook ads, and by the way, I've told my clients I was against Facebook ads when those first started. Of course, I was wrong, as we know now, but I was against Facebook ads because I thought nobody's going to use them. Nobody's going to click on them. It's interruption marketing. It's not intent-based marketing, blah, blah, blah. Again, wrong about that. Nevertheless, within 90 days of when Facebook ads started, I started running ads on Facebook. And again, everything worked. You could put out anything that you put out there, it just worked. It was awesome. And it was kind of cool and everything. And so, but the problem with that is that it got people to come into the marketplace who didn't know anything about ads and didn't know any principles about marketing and just start saying they were running ads. And so they started, and then they wouldn't work. The ads just wouldn't work. And when they didn't work, it wasn't a big deal because they could just get another client. But then that left the first client with a bitter taste in their mouth. Because now they're like, well, I need to do ads. But if I do ads, then, I don't want to just hire somebody. How do I know if this next person's going to do good? So it's really a tough thing. So let me talk just a little bit more about why most agencies disappoint. So I've got a few key points here on that. So one is they mostly overpromise and underdeliver. That's a very common thing. And so whether intentional or not. So my project manager, Michelle, she and I were talking about this just a day or two ago, actually, and somebody she used to work with in another agency, and one of the reasons she left that agency was because that's what they were doing. They were perpetually over-promising and under-delivering, and they did it knowingly. So what I mean by that is that I don't want to take on clients that I don't think I can get a good result. Like, I'd rather just say, hey, I can't do this. Like, this is not a good fit. Let's I'd rather refer you out to somebody else or whatever. But most agencies won't do that, and the reason is they're looking at the money. I mean, I hate to say that, but it's true. And so, you know, when it really bothers me to see that out there, but it's true. But let me just say this. I mean, every business has nefarious characters out there. I mean, this one may just have more than a lot, but it's out there, and it bothers me. Most the second thing why agencies disappoint is most people want a boutique style service so that they're getting more personalized service, but they want and they end up with a larger agency that can't deliver that style service, if that makes sense. And or worse, they go to what they think's a boutique style, and then it's a one-man show. So one-man shows are tough too, because if they end up with too many clients, they can't service them, or at least not service them effectively. And so there's ups and downsides to that, but most of it has to do with the owner of the agency making sure that they don't take on work that they can't deliver on, or deliver on in a timely manner. And it is a balancing act. It is for me too. But I make sure that our client load is in a certain range. And you just want to make sure that that's true for the agency that you're hiring, especially if it's a one-man show. Unfortunately, for better or for worse, most one-man shows do not have a lot of data behind them. They haven't, and they definitely haven't have very big ad spends. Now they might have worked at a place that had a big ad spend, but likely in their own agency, because if they had other clients that had big ad spends, and they were the only person that are really working there, they wouldn't be getting a new client. They'd be spending all their time with the ones with the big ad spends. That's how that works. A lot of times also agencies will do complex strategies that you really don't even need, because frankly, simple is what works. Complex strategies are almost always unnecessary. They sound cool. We'll trigger these automations, and we'll do all these retargeting, and we'll do this retargeting scaling ads, and anyway, it's never ending. And the problem with that is, again, it's just not super effective. Simple works better. You don't need more. That's not really how that works. I'll tell you something that really bothers me too, and I hear this all the time, is when an agency blames you, the client, instead of themselves. And the truth is, and this is, I believe this wholeheartedly, the truth is that agencies, they're always to blame. In other words, if you didn't get a good result, from your ads, it is the agency's fault 100%. And the reason is this: the agency's going to say, well, your offer stinks. Well, if that were true, why did the agency take you on to begin with? That's what I'd want to know, right? So that's why I don't take people on that has an offer that stinks. I'm like, hey, let's get this together first. Now I might consult on it, and we work on the offer and get it up to par, but otherwise I don't want to take you on if your offer stinks, or if I think your offer is one of those situations where I'm just not sure. I got to tell you, I'll tell you that, and you want your agency to do that too, because like I have a client who she works with adopted parents of adopted kids. I mean, that's a very niche market, right? And I told her, I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm not sure. I mean, she had some results that were working and some things that did work. And so I was like, okay, but, I'm a little worried about this. And it worked. It still works. So, she's a client today. So you just never know. But you just want to make sure that they're not blaming you is what I'm getting at. If they blame you, I would run. I'm just telling you. The other thing is that the reality is an agency cannot fix a bad offer. It doesn't matter how good the ads are. Now, you can have if you have an awesome offer, your ads can be mediocre at best, and it'll work. But the reverse is not true. If you have a mediocre offer, it doesn't matter how good the ad is. It's not gonna save you. Now, one thing that a lot of people ask me, but say, so what about hiring somebody off Upwork or Fiverr? Well, again, that's a one-man show, and the problem that I have is most, I don't say most, the ones I've seen anyway, they use this kind of cookie cutter template overall, and they're not in to strategize with you. That's not really what they do. They just run the ads, and that doesn't really work. You really need, I don't even like the term partner, but that's what it is. You really need an agency that's going to partner with you, and at least somebody on that agency's team that you can contact and you can talk about everything. Because most people think that an ad is just about the ad. An ad agency is just about the ad, but it's not. The agency really needs to understand the entire process: emails, sales processes, pages, all that stuff. It really needs to know that in order to get you the best outcome. So where do you find someone? Well, that's the big question, right? Referrals is usually a good place, but you've got to do your research. So, and by the way, before we go on, because I don't ever say this, is if you like this kind of stuff, subscribe. I would love it if you subscribed. And if you think it stinks, then send me an email and tell me it stinks, because I want to know. I don't want to not know. All right. So let me tell you this about how do you get referrals. So a lot of people will post in a Facebook group, and I've been tagged in so many of those posts I can't even tell you. And I'll tell you what I see out there is that most of the time what'll happen, people will reply and they'll say, oh, such and such is the best. Or that person themselves, the ad person, will say, yes, I've done $10 billion, right? That's why I'm replying to, Facebook group posts, because that's how good I am, right? And I don't mean that in a bad way. I've gotten a ton of clients off from Facebook group posts. But what I'm saying is that people will only emphasize the parts that make them look good, right? And I get that. You're not trying to make yourself look bad, but that's all you're going to see is a bunch of me toos. Okay, me too, me too, me too. That's it. And so that's usually not the best way, to respond that way. So if people refer people to you in a Facebook group, I would contact the people who did not reply in that particular post. Okay, if that makes sense. So if somebody referred me and I did not reply into that post, then I would contact me. If that makes sense. Of course, I'd contact me anyway, wouldn't you? All right. So when you're ready, when are you ready for an ad agency? Well, it's when you have a dialed-in offer and a funded monthly ad budget of at least $2,000 a month or more. And preferably, you know how to run ads to some extent yourself. Again, I would not start running ads unless I knew how to run ads. You don't have to be perfect at it. You don't have to know everything that there is to know, but you need to have some experience with it. It will help you tremendously. The $2,000 a month, can you do less? Yeah, you can. The reason I put it at that number, and I said, hey, funded for funded monthly ad budget of at least $2,000 a month or more, is because when you have less than $2,000, a lot of times for most offers, it's hard to get it figured out. And so the first month, you're just trying to figure a lot of things out. Unless you already have it dialed in, like you've been running them yourself and you're just wanting to hand them off, that's one thing. But if you haven't and you're just trying to get it figured out, then you need to have your budget funded before you hire an agency. All right, here's a couple things to watch out for. One, agencies that can't explain exactly what they're actually going to do. It's just a lot of fluff. And sometimes it's hard to tell that it's fluff because they're using agency speak that's over your head. And I'm not saying they're doing it intentionally. That's not really what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that they should be able to explain it to you like you don't know anything about ads, which you may not, right? And if you don't understand it, if you have your 12-year-old sitting on the call with you and your 12-year-old doesn't understand it, then that's not going to work out. Sometimes agencies will overwhelm you with all the things that they're going to do, and I don't know that, again, they do that on purpose, but it's too much. Again, most of this stuff needs to be very straightforward and very simple, and once they start getting extremely technical, it's not good. And then I mentioned this before about they only tell you about all the millions that they've spent or made. I mean, that's the only thing that they talk about. That's not a good signal. So here's what to look for. Agencies will give you clear and simple expectations and timeliness. Okay. By the way, and I'm sure there's plenty of other agencies that do this, but one of the things that I've always heard my whole agency career is I communicate. Even if the results are bad, they're going to hear from me. In fact, if the results are bad, I'm going to tell them sooner because I don't want that hanging over my head or their head. The client needs to know if things aren't working out. I mean, I would love to tell you that every ad I've ever done has just, done billions and all that, but we all know that's not true. That's not how it works at all. So you have to talk about those things. About, if something's going bad, you have to be able to talk about it. You want to ask them what a measurable result is going to be that you're looking for, how they communicate, if they're open-minded, because some aren't. It's their way or the highway, and people will just go along with it because they think they're the experts. Push back on that. So here is the number one question to ask. So forget about the success stories. I've talked about that. Ask them about their top 3 worst campaigns, how much they lost, how they dealt with it, and what happened to the client. I mean, that's going to tell you everything that you need to know. It's not really about how well they've done. I mean, anybody can talk about that. That's the easy thing. It's the hard ones, the ones that they didn't do well on. And if they tell you they don't have any that they didn't do well on, they're lying, or they haven't been doing it very long. It's one or the other. So either way, that's a bad outcome. All right. That's it. I feel very preachy on this episode, and I didn't mean to. So a good agency should never agree to take you on if they're not at least 80% certain that they can make you money. It's just that simple. So the second thing is learn ads yourself. Learn it yourself so that you know what's going on. All right, if you're thinking about hiring an agency, go in with your eyes wide open. Ask hard questions. Demand clarity. These are all just notes I made. And don't sign anything until you're sure it fits your business. All right. Thanks so much for being on this episode. Do not forget, please subscribe. I would love that. And I'll catch y'all on episode 122. All right, see you there. Thanks for listening to the Ads with the Twang podcast. If you get a second, jump on over to my YouTube channel, Marketing with the Twang, and subscribe. You'll get all kinds of no BS business building help there. I'll see you next time.